A man in his late 70s steps onto a beach in Europe. He has just won the largest empire on earth. Every rival from his youth is dead. He walks toward a small altar near the shore. He is smiling. He will be dead before sunset, stabbed by a man he trusted. And the empire he spent 50 years building will start cracking the moment he falls. Because of every officer who served under Alexander the Great, only one outlived them all. Only one took more land than Alexander himself ever ruled directly. His name wasn't Ptolemy. It wasn't Antigonus. It wasn't Lysimachus. It was Seleucus, and almost nobody remembers him. He wasn't the loudest of Alexander's generals. He wasn't the boldest. He wasn't the favorite. While the others fought each other into the ground in the years after Alexander's death, Seleucus watched. He waited. He moved last. And by the time the dust settled, he was holding more of the ancient world than any single man had held since. But the same patience that built his empire would betray him in its final hour. The man who never reached too far reached one last time, and it killed him. He was born around 358 BC in a small town in northern Macedonia. His father, Antiochus, was a respected officer under King Philip II. So Seleucus grew up around soldiers. He learned the rhythm of camp life before he learned anything else. When Philip's son Alexander launched his invasion of Persia in 34 BC, Seleucus marched with him. He was in his 20s, an officer in the infantry. He was there at the river Granicus. He was there at Issus. He was there at Gaugamela when Alexander shattered the Persian Empire in an afternoon. He was there in Bactria, in Sogdiana, in the brutal mountain campaigns. And he was there in India, by then commanding the elite shield-bearers, the Hypaspists. The Hypaspists were Alexander's hand-picked storm troops, the men who climbed walls first, the men who took the worst ground. You did not lead them unless you had nerve. At the Hydaspes River in India against the war elephants of King Porus, Seleucus stood in that front line. The elephants would matter to him again, years later, in ways he could not have guessed. Ancient sources describe him as tall, powerful, and unshakably steady. The kind of officer who didn't panic when everything around him was falling apart. He would need that. In 320 Phi, in a hot palace in Babylon, Alexander died. He was 32 years old. He left no clear heir, just a half-brother who was mentally unfit and a pregnant wife carrying a child who hadn't been born yet. And he left an empire stretching from Greece to the edge of India, suddenly in the hands of his generals. They gathered around his body and made promises. They divided the provinces among themselves. They swore loyalty to the dead king's family. None of it held. Within a year, the promises were broken. Within a few years, the generals were at each other's throats. These were the wars of the Successors, the Diadochi. And in this first round, Seleucus is a side character. He's not a frontline player. He picks the right man to back, a regent named Perdiccas, who held Alexander's signet ring. Seleucus becomes the commander of Perdiccas's cavalry. But Perdiccas overreaches. He invades Egypt to crush Ptolemy, and the campaign disintegrates on the Nile. His own officers turn on him in his tent. Seleucus is reportedly among the men who strike the killing blow. It is the first lesson Seleucus learns about this new world. Loyalty has a shelf life, and the man at the top is always the easiest target. He also learns the second lesson, the one that will define him. Never be the man at the top while the giants are still fighting. Be the one nearby. Be the one they underestimate. The survivors meet at a place called Triparadisus in 32 BC, and they carve up the empire again. Seleucus gets a reward for switching sides at the right moment. He's given Babylon. Babylon, the ancient heart of Mesopotamia, the city Alexander chose as his capital, the richest, oldest, most strategic prize in the East. A few years earlier, Seleucus was an infantry officer. Now he governs the cradle of civilization. He runs it well. He doesn't try to crush the Babylonian priesthood. He honors their gods. He learns their calendar. He marries a Persian noblewoman named Apama and keeps her when most of Alexander's other officers quietly set their Persian wives aside. That marriage is not a small detail. It tells you exactly what kind of ruler he means to be, one whose power runs to the east itself, not against it. Apama gives him a son. The boy is named Antiochus. He will outlive his father and inherit everything. That choice in a marriage bed in Babylon will keep a dynasty alive for 2 centuries. For 5 years, Seleucus builds quietly while the others tear each other apart, and then a giant comes for him. His name is Antigonus the One-Eyed, a massive, ferocious old general, the strongest of the successors, and the one who dreams of putting Alexander's empire back together under himself. Antigonus marches into Babylon in 316 BC and demands an audit of Seleucus's accounts. It's a humiliation. It's a setup. Seleucus understands. If he stays, he dies. He runs. With only a handful of friends and a few hundred horsemen, he flees across the desert to Egypt and the protection of Ptolemy. For most of these generals, that would be the end of the story. A failed satrap. A footnote. For Seleucus, it is the beginning. In Egypt, he convinces Ptolemy that Antigonus is the threat to all of them. He helps build a coalition, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, Cassander, against the one-eyed giant. War breaks out across the Mediterranean, and in 312 BC, Ptolemy wins a major battle at Gaza against Antigonus's son. In the chaos that follows, Seleucus sees his opening. It takes about 1,000 men, some accounts say even fewer, and he rides east toward a Babylon now held by Antigonus's garrison. He has no army, he has no money, he has nothing but a memory of how well he once governed that city. And here is where the legend begins. As he crosses the desert and the people of Babylon hear he is coming, they don't barricade the gates, they open them. Old officers ride out to meet him, veterans rejoin his column. The city, by every account we have, welcomes him back. He retakes Babylon almost without a fight. It is one of the most extraordinary returns in ancient history. The year is 312 BC, and to the Seleucid Empire that will follow, this is year 1. This is the moment counted as the beginning. An entire calendar, the Seleucid era, will start from this single ride across the desert. Now Seleucus is not just back, he is dangerous. He pushes east, he takes Susa, he takes Media, he takes Persis. Province after province, he stitches the eastern half of Alexander's old empire back together, under himself. By 305 BC, he stops pretending. He takes the title of king. Seleucus I, lord of an empire that stretches from the Mediterranean coast of Syria, across Mesopotamia, through Persia, all the way to the foothills of the Hindu Kush. Think about that distance for a moment. From the deserts of Syria to the snowline above the Khyber Pass, from Greek-speaking ports on the Mediterranean to fire temples on the Iranian plateau. No single ruler since the height of the Persian Empire had held that much eastern ground, and he had taken it not with one great victory, but with 100 small, patient choices. But there is one more eastern question he has to answer: India. Beyond the Indus, a new power has risen. A king named Chandragupta Maurya has united northern India under his own crown. He is young, brilliant, and absolutely unwilling to be conquered. Seleucus marches east around 305 BC to reclaim what Alexander once held. He meets Chandragupta, and then something remarkable happens. He does not fight a long war. He makes a deal. Seleucus gives up his claims to the lands beyond the Indus. In exchange, Chandragupta gives him something far more useful for the wars in the West: 500 war elephants. 500. It is a number that staggers even ancient writers. An entire armored corps in animal form. The Mauryans throw in a marriage alliance to seal it. Some modern historians have called this the worst real estate trade in human history. Seleucus gave away the Indus Valley, lands that bordered the richest economy in the ancient world. He didn't see it that way. He saw a coming war in the West. He saw Antigonus the One-Eyed dreaming of Alexander's whole empire, and he saw a weapon his rivals could not match. Seleucus turns around and rides west with the largest elephant force the Mediterranean world has ever seen. And he is going straight at Antigonus. In 301 BC, near a town called Ipsus in central Anatolia, 4 armies converge. The old one-eyed king, Antigonus, now in his 80s, faces a coalition led by Seleucus and Lysimachus. The battle hinges on those elephants. Seleucus throws his elephant line into the gap between Antigonus's cavalry and infantry, and the cavalry cannot push back through. Antigonus is cut off from his own army. He fights to the last. He falls in a hail of javelins, still believing his son will come back to save him. His son does not come back in time. The greatest threat in the Successor Wars is dead, and the largest share of his empire goes to the man with the elephants. Ipsus is one of those battles that history almost forgets, but it should be remembered with Gaugamela. It ends the dream of restoring Alexander's empire under one man. After Ipsus, the Hellenistic world is permanently divided, and Seleucus has the biggest piece. Pause for a moment, because this is the peak. By the early 290s BC, Seleucus rules from the Aegean Sea to the edge of India. His empire is bigger than Ptolemy's, bigger than Lysimachus's, bigger in territory than anything Alexander ever directly governed for any length of time. He doesn't sit still in it, he builds. He founds a new capital on the Tigris and calls it Seleucia, a city designed to draw the wealth of Babylon into a Greek-style metropolis. He founds Antioch on the Orontes in northern Syria, named for his father. It will become one of the great cities of the ancient world for centuries. He founds dozens more. Some accounts say nearly 60 cities across his empire, each one a small Macedonia planted in foreign soil. He encourages Greek settlers to come east. He keeps local administrators in place. He blends Macedonian, Persian, and Babylonian traditions in his court. This is the quiet genius of Seleucus that almost nobody talks about. Alexander conquered the East. Seleucus held it, and holding is harder than conquering. He doesn't try to make Persians into Greeks. He doesn't try to make Greeks into Persians. He builds a system where both can rise, both can serve, and both pay taxes to him. And then he does something almost no other successor does. He grooms his son to inherit. His eldest son is named Antiochus, after Seleucus's father. Seleucus makes him co-king. He gives Antiochus the eastern half of the empire to govern in his own name. It is a remarkable act of trust from a man who has watched everyone around him be betrayed by their own sons, brothers, and officers. There is a famous story from this period, and you can take it as legend or as truth. Antiochus, the young co-king, falls dangerously, mysteriously ill. The royal physician examines him and realizes the boy is sick with love for his stepmother, Stratonice, Seleucus's young second wife. When Seleucus learns this, the story goes, he doesn't rage, he doesn't punish anyone. He hands Stratonice over to his son in marriage and reorganizes his succession around them. Whether it happened exactly like that or not, the meaning is the same. Seleucus, at his peak, was the rare king willing to give power away to keep his house standing. For a few years in the 290s BC, the empire holds in perfect balance, the father in the west, the son in the east. The dynasty looks unshakable. But the old hunger never quite leaves him. Out west, beyond the mountains, there is still one rival left from the old days. One man who marched with Alexander and is still standing. Lysimachus, king of Thrace and now Asia Minor. He's the last of them. Ptolemy is gone. Cassander is gone. Antigonus is long dead. Only Lysimachus and Seleucus remain from the original generation. And they are old, both well into their 70s. Two relics of Alexander's army, ruling opposite halves of his old world. It should have ended there. Any sensible accounting of Seleucus's life would stop at the peak. The boy from a small Macedonian town has outlasted the most ambitious generation in ancient history. His son rules beside him. His cities are filling with Greeks. His name is on a calendar. But sensible accountings don't make tragedies. And this is a tragedy. Before we ride into that last battle, let me ask you something. If you were Seleucus, sitting at the peak of the largest empire in the world, in your 70s with a son already ruling beside you, would you have stopped? Would you have been content? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm genuinely curious because what he did next is the most human and the most destructive choice of his entire life. Now let's see how it ended. In Lysimachus's court, things are falling apart. He has executed his own son and heir, Agathocles, on the advice of a jealous wife. The killing horrifies his nobles. Many of them flee. They flee to Seleucus. They beg him to intervene. They tell him Lysimachus's kingdom is rotten from the inside, and one push will topple it. Seleucus is 77 years old. He could let this pass. He has more land than he can govern. He has a co-king son ready to inherit everything. But the offer is too large. The whole of Asia Minor, the last unfinished business of his life, the chance to be, finally, the only one left. He marches. In early 281 BC, the two old kings meet on a plain called Corupedium, somewhere in what is now western Turkey. The exact details of the battle are lost to us. The ancient accounts are short. What we know is this: Lysimachus, in his late 70s, dies in the fighting. Some sources say struck down by a spear, some by a younger officer. He is buried by his loyal dog, who refuses to leave his body. The last of Alexander's generals, besides Seleucus, is gone. Think of the line of men who started this story. Perdiccas, killed by his own officers. Antipater, dead of old age. Craterus, killed in battle. Antigonus the One-Eyed, dead at Ipsus. Cassander, dead of disease. Ptolemy, dead in Egypt. Lysimachus, dead at Corupedium. Seleucus has outlived them all, every single one. For a few weeks in 281 BC, Seleucus is the only one left, the last man who marched with Alexander, the sole survivor of the most ambitious generation in ancient history. He could have gone home to Antioch. He could have ridden east to his son. But there is one more reach in him, one more piece of the old world he never had. Macedonia, the homeland, the kingdom of Philip and Alexander, the land he left as a young officer half a century earlier. He starts moving west toward the crossing into Europe. He is going home after 50 years. He travels with a small entourage. Among them is a man named Ptolemy Keranos, the Thunderbolt, the disinherited son of old Ptolemy of Egypt. Seleucus has been sheltering him as a guest. They cross over into Thrace. They stop near an old altar by the sea, possibly an ancient memorial. Seleucus, by some accounts, steps off the road to look at it. Ptolemy Keranos draws a sword. He stabs Seleucus in the back. It is over in seconds. The man who outlived every rival, who outmaneuvered every enemy, who waited longer than anyone else in the ancient world, dies on a quiet shore because he trusted the wrong guest. Think about the timing. He's been caned for less than a month over his complete dominion. The reward of a lifetime is delivered and then snatched away in a span of weeks. He is 77 years old. He has been king for 24 years. He has ruled, at his peak, more land than any other successor of Alexander. And he died because he could not stop himself from reaching for one last thing. Keranos rides off with a small force and tries to seize Macedonia for himself. He will be killed within 2 years by Celtic invaders, his head paraded on a spear. Back east, Seleucus' son Antiochus inherits everything. He holds the empire together. He fights off rebellions, manages the satrapies, keeps the dynasty alive. The Seleucid Empire that Seleucus built will last, in some form, for nearly 250 years. It will fight Rome. It will fight Parthia. It will produce kings remembered in the Hebrew Bible and the Roman histories. But it will never again be as large as the day its founder died. And here is the strange weight of his legacy. We remember Alexander as the great conqueror. We remember Ptolemy because of Cleopatra. We remember Caesar. We remember Hannibal. Seleucus held more of Asia than any of them, and most people have never heard his name. His cities outlived him by centuries. Antioch became a capital of early Christianity. Seleucia, on the Tigris, rivaled Rome in size. The Seleucid calendar, that calendar he started the day he rode back into Babylon, was used in parts of the Middle East for over 1,000 years. He didn't conquer the world. He inherited a piece of it, lost it, came back with 1,000 men, and built something that outlasted everyone who once stood above him. The lesson of his life is not about ambition. Almost everyone in his generation had ambition. The lesson is about timing. He waited longer than anyone. He moved when the others were exhausted. He built when the others were burning. And he kept building quietly for 50 years. And then, in the very last chapter, he forgot the one rule that had made him. He stopped waiting. If this story pulled you in, do me a favor, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who love this kind of history. If you're new here, subscribe. We tell the real stories of the rulers and conquerors most channels skip, the ones that textbooks reduce to a single line. And I want to hear from you. Who should we cover next? Another of Alexander's officers, a Persian king, a Roman emperor? Drop the name in the comments and I'll add it to the list. Next time, we're staying in this world. We're going to one more of these successor kings, a man who held Egypt while Seleucus held Asia, and whose family would end with the most famous queen in history. You already know her name. but you've probably never met him. Stay close, his story is next.